The European Union prides itself on its commitment to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. These principles are enshrined in its treaties and are the bedrock upon which the EU was built. Yet, beneath the surface of this idealistic facade, a powerful force operates in the shadows, quietly shaping EU policy to align with the interests of a foreign power. This influence is not always visible, but its effects are profound and far-reaching. This force is ELNET, the European Leadership Network, a pro-Israel lobbying group that has gained unprecedented access to the corridors of power in Brussels and beyond. ELNET's influence extends to various levels of the EU's political structure, from the European Parliament to national governments. Founded in 2007, ELNET's stated mission is to strengthen relations between Europe and Israel. Over the years, it has built a robust network of supporters and allies within the EU, leveraging these connections to further its agenda. However, a closer examination reveals a far more ambitious agenda, one that seeks to mold European policy in line with the Israeli government's agenda, often at the expense of Palestinian rights and broader European interests. This agenda is pursued through a combination of lobbying, strategic partnerships, and targeted campaigns. ELNET's tactics are subtle, yet effective. They operate behind the scenes, using their influence to shape policy decisions and public opinion. Their methods include private meetings, exclusive briefings, and the dissemination of carefully crafted narratives. They cultivate relationships with politicians, journalists, and policymakers, offering them access to exclusive events, high-level meetings, and carefully curated information. These relationships are nurtured over time, creating a network of influential individuals who are sympathetic to ELNET's goals. This access comes at a price, a willingness to view the Israeli-Palestinian conflict through a lens that minimizes Palestinian suffering and legitimizes Israeli actions, no matter how controversial. This perspective is then reflected in policy decisions and public statements, shaping the EU's stance on the conflict. This essay will delve into the shadowy world of ELNET, exposing its tactics, its funding sources, and its impact on EU policy. We will explore how this organization operates, who supports it, and what its ultimate goals are. It will argue that ELNET's influence represents a clear and present danger to the integrity of European democracy, undermining transparency, accountability, and the very values upon which the European project is built. The presence of such a force within the EU raises serious questions about the future of European governance. It is time to shine a light on this shadowy force and reclaim the European Union for the people it is meant to serve. Only through transparency and accountability can the EU hope to uphold its founding principles and serve the interests of all its citizens. The future of European democracy may very well depend on it. The stakes are high and the time for action is now. One of ELNET's most effective tactics is the organization of all expenses-paid trips to Israel for European politicians, journalists, and other influential figures. These trips are not just simple visits. They are carefully orchestrated experiences designed to leave a lasting impression on the participants. These trips, often framed as fact-finding missions or educational experiences, are meticulously designed to present a carefully curated image of Israel and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The participants are taken to historical sites, given guided tours, and provided with detailed briefings that highlight Israel's achievements and challenges. Participants are typically treated to lavish hospitality, including dining at some of the finest restaurants and staying in luxurious accommodations. This level of hospitality is intended to create a positive and memorable experience for the visitors. They are granted access to high-ranking Israeli officials, including military officers and political leaders, which provides them with a sense of importance and exclusivity. During these trips, participants are shown a sanitized version of reality that omits the harsh realities of the occupation and the daily struggles faced by Palestinians living under Israeli control. The narrative presented is one-sided, focusing on Israel's security concerns and downplaying the impact of its policies on the Palestinian population. These trips serve a dual purpose. On one hand, they aim to foster a sense of indebtedness among participants, creating a network of individuals who are more likely to be sympathetic to Israeli perspectives and policy positions. Firstly, they foster a sense of indebtedness among participants, creating a network of individuals who are more likely to be sympathetic to Israeli perspectives and policy positions. This network can be influential in shaping public opinion and policy decisions in their home countries. Secondly, they provide participants with a veneer of expertise that can be leveraged to legitimize pro-Israel narratives and influence public opinion back home. By presenting themselves as informed and experienced, these individuals can sway the views of their peers and the public. The allure of these trips is undeniable, particularly for politicians seeking to burnish their foreign policy credentials or journalists eager for exclusive access. The opportunity to visit a region of such geopolitical importance and to meet with key figures is a significant draw. However, the ethical implications of accepting such lavish hospitality from a foreign government, particularly one engaged in a protracted conflict, are significant and cannot be ignored. These trips raise questions about the influence of foreign governments on domestic politics and media, and the potential for bias in reporting and policymaking. ELNET's influence extends far beyond these carefully orchestrated trips. The organization has cultivated a vast network of politicians across the political spectrum, many of whom are in positions of significant power and influence. These politicians often act as ELNET's voice within their respective parties and parliaments, advocating for pro-Israel policies and defending Israeli actions on the international stage. While ELNET insists that its interactions with politicians are transparent and above board, there are growing concerns about the organization's lack of transparency and accountability. ELNET is not required to disclose its donors or its expenditures, making it difficult to assess the true extent of its financial influence. Moreover, there have been numerous instances of politicians failing to declare their participation in ELNET-sponsored trips, or downplaying the organization's role in shaping their views on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This lack of transparency raises serious questions about undue influence and potential conflicts of interest. When politicians are beholden to foreign interests, it undermines public trust in democratic institutions and erodes the very foundations of a free and open society. Section 4. Shifting Sands. ELNET's impact on EU policy towards Gaza and the settlements. ELNET's influence is perhaps most evident in the shifting sands of EU policy towards the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This organization has been working behind the scenes, engaging with key policymakers and stakeholders to shape the narrative in favor of Israel. Their efforts have not gone unnoticed, as the EU's stance has seen a significant shift over the past few years. In recent years, the EU has become increasingly reluctant to criticize Israeli actions, even in the face of blatant violations of international law. This reluctance is a marked departure from the EU's previous positions, which were more critical of Israel's policies and actions in the occupied territories. This shift can be attributed in part to ELNET's tireless efforts to reshape the narrative surrounding the conflict and silence dissenting voices. By lobbying EU officials and presenting a more favorable view of Israel's actions, ELNET has managed to influence the discourse significantly. ELNET has been particularly successful in influencing EU policy on two key issues: the Israeli blockade of Gaza and the expansion of Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. These are contentious issues that have drawn widespread international criticism, yet ELNET's efforts have led to a more muted response from the EU. Despite widespread international condemnation of the blockade as illegal and inhumane, the EU has done little to challenge it. The blockade has had devastating effects on the people of Gaza, restricting access to essential goods and services, and contributing to a humanitarian crisis. This inaction is due in part to ELNET's success in framing the blockade as a necessary security measure to protect Israel from Hamas, ignoring the devastating humanitarian consequences for the 2 million Palestinians trapped in Gaza. By emphasizing security concerns, ELNET has managed to sway EU policymakers to overlook the severe impact on civilians. Similarly, ELNET has worked tirelessly to undermine EU efforts to hold Israel accountable for its settlement enterprise, which is illegal under international law. The expansion of settlements has been a major obstacle to peace, yet ELNET's narrative has downplayed these concerns. ELNET argues that settlements are not an obstacle to peace and that their expansion does not prejudice the outcome of final status negotiations. This argument has been presented to EU officials repeatedly, creating a sense of doubt about the established international consensus on the illegality of settlements. This narrative, while demonstrably false, has gained traction among some EU policymakers, emboldening Israel to continue its settlement expansion with impunity. The influence of ELNET in shaping EU policy cannot be underestimated, as it has led to a significant shift in the EU's approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, with long-lasting implications for peace and stability in the region. Section 5. The Money Trail Unveiling, ELNET's funding sources. To understand the true extent of ELNET's influence, it is essential to follow the money trail. ELNET is notoriously opaque about its funding sources, claiming that it is a private organization, not subject to public scrutiny. However, investigative journalists and researchers have managed to piece together a partial picture of ELNET's finances, revealing a web of connections to wealthy individuals, pro-Israel organizations, and even foreign governments. While ELNET claims to receive funding from a diverse range of sources, including foundations, businesses, and individuals, a significant portion of its funding appears to come from a small number of wealthy donors with a vested interest in promoting pro-Israel policies. These donors often have close ties to the Israeli government and share its hardline views on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The lack of transparency surrounding ELNET's funding raises serious concerns about foreign interference in European politics. When a foreign government or its proxies are able to exert undue influence over elected officials and public policy, it undermines the very principles of democratic self-determination and accountability.
So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and let's turn the page on a new adventure together. Get ready to experience books like never before, only on VBook 360. Like, comment, and share to support the channel and keep the video magic alive. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, every video has a story, and every story deserves to be shared. See you in the next video.